it's my pleasure to be able to speak to Oliver today, CEO and founder of Zocdoc, who I'm sure a lot of folks on the call today are very, very familiar with. But Oliver, I'd love for you to give the audience a little bit of an introduction and what Zocdoc is up to nowadays.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jerry. Good to be here and happy to introduce Zocdoc. My name is Oliver Kharraz. I'm the founder and CEO, and Zocdoc is operating a marketplace in healthcare. So for a patient that typically has to wait nearly a month to see a doctor, when they pick up the phone and dial down a list that they might have gotten from the insurance company, we typically provide them with the ability to see one within 24 to 48 hours. How does this work? Because we take the doctor's inventory that's free because of last-minute cancellations, no-shows, reschedules, and we make that findable by these patients who are looking. And therefore, we are sort of helping the patient be seen much sooner, but we also help the doctors to make incremental revenue. And given that most practices are sort of all fixed cost businesses, it turns out this is a fantastic investment for the practice with an average 7 to 20 times 12-month ROI.
No, that's really, really wonderful. And, I think just one of the epitomes of the reason why we're combining technology with medicine. Now, based on the title, of course, it's that a lot of the viewers will have seen. We'd love for you to elaborate on this concept of animal spirits that you just coined about returning to the hospital sector, and the specific changes or trends that you're seeing that are driving this sort of resurgence, and how it's going to impact the dynamics within the sector.
Yeah, I mean, so we've been working with hospitals for many, many years. And so I've been seeing their journey from, the pandemic when it initially hit them, where they obviously were very focused on, thankfully, providing care to so many of us and helping us to weather this as a society. And it was a very, sorry about that, was a very reactive situation for them, where they were at the mercy of where the pandemic was taking them. And so they went through this initial trauma, and then in the follow-up to that, they had a lot of challenges, right? They had staff leaving, burnout issues, strikes. And so for the executives and the decision makers at hospitals, were a couple very difficult years. The transition back to normal, which also meant change, also further draining their batteries. And so there was a short time, maybe in 2023, where there was some paralysis. It's like, hey, let me just sort of catch my breath. There's too much change going on. Let's consolidate where the business is. That is broadly gone. They have caught their breath. They are good athletes. They are great leaders. And I've heard so much about plans and how to shape the future and really put them in a much better competitive position go forward, which was really heartening to see because the hospitals, have been thrown a curveball that other players in healthcare provision broadly have been taking advantage of. The hospitals being distracted here. And so I feel very, very, a lot more bullish on the future of hospitals and them being able to react to a completely reshaped market after hearing them speak at JP Morgan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll move on to sort of your experiences at JP Morgan in just a moment. But I think there's been sort of a trend with seeing outpatient services sort of gain momentum at the moment. Like what are you seeing as sort of the driver behind that, and how are the health systems that you were just talking about adapting to that sort of shift, and what are the implications for patient care around that?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk briefly about why the shift to outpatient is happening, because it's better for practically everyone except maybe status quo interested institutions. An outpatient, an ambulatory surgery center can see a lot more patients in the same time. They can turn their ORs a lot quicker, so they are much more capital efficient, and as a result, they can be cheaper than sort of a traditional hospital-based OR, which is something that is good for the payer or the employer, whoever ultimately foots the bill. It's typically good for the patient because, faster turnarounds, less time in hospital, less chances for nosocomial infections. It's better for the doctor because they can see a higher caseload and either work more or compress their work into fewer hours. And so it does leave sort of a number of stranded assets if you want to, like if you want to continue to operate an OR the way you used to, then that's probably coming on a lot of pressure. But what I see happening is that while there was kind of maybe in some corners this hope that, well, this will pass and we can continue to operate as previously, there's increasingly the recognition that this is the future, and that investments and partnerships to make these outpatient centers work is something that's required to stay competitive in the future. And I think this coin is completely dropped, and we now will see the execution of that strategy.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. To switch the gears a little bit, and to sort of start talking a little bit about the conference that just passed in San Francisco, and what you said about payers here. Can you sort of delve into the challenges associated with the payer mix and the strategies or innovations that are being discussed, especially, of course, at JP Morgan, to
Right.
address the issues around that?
Yeah, so this is the payer mix, particularly when you look at it from a hospital's perspective, is actually a relatively new phenomenon. Like we have sort of a bird's eye view at Zocdoc where we can see how patients decide and what sort of the relative market shares are. And Zocdoc is a very heavily commercial payer mix, so we see how these commercial patients decide. And if we look at the pre-pandemic times, on Zocdoc, these 90% commercial patients, they went roughly in equal proportion to PE-backed players and sort of large provider groups and hospitals, right? So that was a 50-50 split. Now, if we look back at 2023, it's more like an 80-20 split, and it might be a 90-10 split if the trends stay unchecked, which means that the financial backer sort of driven entities are capturing an ever increasing share of the commercial patients, which means that the hospitals are stuck with the remainder, which is frequently so low margin that you cannot even operate your hospital profitably with that. And obviously, no one wants to bleed out their balance sheet, and you can't sustainably operate something that's unprofitable. And so what hospitals I think are starting to wake up to is the fact that, yes, the terms of engagement have changed, right? Just having the brand that is known to the patient isn't sufficient anymore. You need to think more actively about what is the kind of experience that you need to provide to attract these commercial patients, and what are the type of marketing channels you use. And I have to say, the basis of all of that is the recognition that without money, there is no mission, right? And so everyone, all the non-for-profits realize that they need to work on their payer mix, and they are starting to engage channels that can give them that, such as Zocdoc, but they think about this much more broadly, and they're certainly addressing a lot of the shortcomings of the offering that has maybe turned a lot of commercial patients away from them.
Yeah, no, really, really good points there, around that. And those of you, of course, who are in the audience that want to connect with Oliver, we've put his information in the chat, as well as a link to Zocdoc, if you guys want to get more information around the great work that they're doing. Now, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about access in healthcare, Oliver. And of course, those access issues have been pretty prevalent and have been a persistent challenge within the industry. How do you sort of see those sort of issues around access improving, albeit slowly, and the role that innovation is going to play there to sort of address the improvements there? And if there's any specific initiatives or discussions at conferences like CES or JP Morgan that highlight that kind of progress that you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely happy to. And I think we will see a lot of movement in access because, in particular, hospitals are beginning to understand that this is one of the key dimensions on which they have to fight against sort of the financial sponsor-backed provider groups, and our data shows that, like, the having availability sooner is really a killer feature. And hospitals sometimes proudly say, oh, we'll if something opens up, we will sort of put a patient that's booked out 2 weeks into the future into that slot. Well, you just gave up an asset that was your best asset to actually get a commercially insured patient, and you filled it with someone who is sort of equivalent to your payer mix that you already have. So you've actually lost an opportunity to improve your payer mix because commercial patients like these slots that are happening very soon. But the reason why access will get better is A, the motivation is there. B, the inputs are getting more available, right? We talked about sort of the staffing shortages and things like that, that sort of depressed animal spirits a little bit for execs. Those are starting to ease. Like most organizations are now sort of driving a very, very focused physician extender strategy, and there's definitely more supply there. So I think they'll have an easier time hiring the providers they need to enable access. And then the other bit is that I strongly believe that actually this is one of the areas where generative AI can really help. I've heard from multiple clients how fantastic results they're seeing with these scribes, AI scribes that listen into these conversations and prepare visit notes or similar things. And yes, a lot of that productivity, if it frees up a few hours a day for the average provider, some of that will be relieving pajama time and maybe not be immediately usable for more patient visits. But it will certainly improve the satisfaction that providers have with their job, which means fewer of them will leave it, which will further increase supply. And I think some of the productivity increase through these generative AI tools will find its way into more availability for patients, and that will ultimately give us what we all want, which is timely access for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's super important, and obviously one of the main goals why you created Zocdoc in the first place. Well, Oliver, thanks so much for coming on the program. It's been lovely to have you a part of the discussions today.